Hello everyone, good evening, good afternoon today. I will become adjudicator from the bed. I'll take a video from YouTube and I will which one? The motion is Islam is a peaceful religion from student in the Oxford University. He is an opposition team. The name is Matthew Handley. So let's go. We watch together this video and I will give you my reaction this video in the last minute in video. Okay, let's watch together.
This debate does not and should not take place in a vacuum. It takes place in the real world. And yesterday, that world was profoundly shaken by a reprehensible act of violence in Woolwich, which saw the soldier Lee Rigby brutally murdered by two assailants. In the immediate aftermath of that attack, two men claimed that they had instigated that attack and claimed that their justification for doing that attack was Allah. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you will all agree this was a despicable act and would wish to extend your sympathies and wishes to the family of Mr. Rigby at this time. But more than that, I am sure that these are sentiments which are shared by the overwhelming majority of Muslims both in Britain and around the world. Not only would they have shared the same revulsion at an act of brutality against our fellow man that we all do, but moreover, they would have felt the anger that their God and their religion was falsely and illegitimately invoked as justification for that heinous crime, without any legitimacy in either the Quran or any Islamic precept and any legitimate reading of those whatsoever. Moreover, they would have felt a profound sense of fear as the clouds of vitriol and misinformation descended once again on all Muslims, as they do in the aftermath of any attack which is perpetrated by someone purporting to act in the name of Islam. Within minutes of the attack, before any of the facts had been substantiated, Muslims was trending on Twitter, with literally thousands of tweets exhorting the expulsion and even extermination of Muslims from the United Kingdom. Last night, the EDL took to the streets in order to reclaim them from Islamism, and in doing so, attempted to torch mosques across the country. Popular media, newspapers and TV channels, before rushing to characterize these men as fanatics or maniacs, sought to characterize them as Muslims. Ladies and gentlemen, the victims of any terror attack are not confined to those who are directly and physically affected by it. The victims of a terror attack are all those who feel insecure, victimised and fearful as a result of that attack. Ladies and gentlemen, the British Muslim community were the victims too of yesterday's attack. That is the context in which tonight's debate occurs, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why it is more important than ever that you refuse to buy into the voices of fear and hate and confusion, which seeks to cast the fundamentally peaceful religion of Islam as a violent one. In the aftermath of such an attack, it is right and just and important that we refuse to allow a monopoly on the discourse surrounding Islam to be given to those voices of fear who either seek to cast it as something that is not, or seek to use it to justify their own violent and heinous aims. And to that end, I am delighted to introduce such an esteemed group of speakers to speak alongside me on this motion tonight. On the proposition, I am joined by Adam Dean, an international public speaker and broadcaster who has been speaking and researching and working in the field of Islamic apologetics for almost a decade now. I am also joined by Mehdi Hassan, who turned down an invitation to Question Time to be here tonight. He's a former PPEist here at Oxford and now the political director of the UK Huffington Post. On the opposition, we are joined by Anne-Marie Waters, a journalist and member of the Labour Party who has campaigned against the imposition of Sharia law in Western democracies. We're also joined next to her by Daniel Johnson, who, like me, studied modern history, but unlike me, is now the editor of a right-wing journal. Finally, we are joined by Peter Atkins, a former professor of chemistry who is frequently, here at Oxford University, who has frequently provided a scientific critique of religion. And I'd like to say to everyone speaking in tonight's debate, and forgive me if I mispronounce, Assalamu alaikum, the universal Islamic greeting, may peace be upon you. Now, for the duration of my speech, I'm going to do three things. First of all, I'm going to set out the parameters and the confines in which this debate should occur. Secondly, I'm going to give you a positive justification for the consideration of Islam as a religion of peace. And finally, I'm going to tell you what it would mean for you to vote in favour of the proposition tonight and why that's something that you should definitely do. So first of all, in terms of setting the parameters for this debate, because both Islam and both peace mean lots and lots of different things to lots and lots of different people. Even at this preliminary stage, I think that's why we should be very wary about refusing to allow Islam to be characterised as peaceful and allowing a hegemony of what Islam can and cannot be to any group in society at all. When we're speaking about peace, we're broadly speaking about, I'd like to invoke a metaphor used by Martin Luther King, which was to say that peace is not just the absence of violence, but the presence of justice. Now, in order to be able to cast Islam as not being a religion of peace and not conforming to those tenets, it's not just enough to cite individual actions or individual scripture. What opposition have to prove to you is that there is something fundamental to the character of Islam which prevents it from being cast as peaceful, and indeed that Islam has to be diametrically opposed to peace. It is not enough for them to cite the actions of individual extremists who invoke the name of religion for their own goals in all religions. We can point to the example of the Lord's Resistance Army in Uganda, who claim the name of Christianity for their atrocities, and the actions of people like Barak Goldstein, who attacked the Cave of the Patriarchs in the 1990s in the name of Judaism. All around the world and in all religions, people often seek to illegitimately hijack the name of that faith for their own violent and maniacal ends. Ladies and gentlemen, the actions of those people tell us absolutely nothing whatsoever about the character of the religion they invoke and tell us everything about the individual and the individual alone. Moreover, it is not enough for them to cite individual pieces of scripture out of context which may lend themselves to warlike rhetoric within the Quran. First of all, such exhortations exist within any religious doctrine, but moreover, to do so ignores the contemporary context in which the Quran was dictated in a state of total war in the 7th century. Scriptural analysis is something that my colleague is going to talk about in more detail. Finally, though, what I'd like to say in terms of scriptural citations is that when we're dealing with a doctrine as diverse and as multifaceted as Islam, even if it can be proven that there exist elements of warlike rhetoric within Islam, even if we can say that in some ways Islam could be considered to have elements of violence, that is not enough. For what we are saying is it is a legitimate and intuitive reading of Islam for people to draw that of being a character of peace and for that to be the message that they on an individual take away from Islam. So in order for opposition to win this debate, they have to prove that Islam, taken in its totality, is so diametrically opposed to peace as to render it entirely illegitimate for us to cast it as a religion of peace. Now, I realise that's a high bar, ladies and gentlemen. But I think when you're attempting to tell a quarter of humanity what their religion cannot be, and attempting to essentialise fundamentally negative and violent characteristics of those people, I'm quite comfortable with setting the bar damn high, ladies and gentlemen. In order for us to win this debate on proposition, all that we have to do is to prove to you that there is nothing inherent to Islam which prevents individuals from taking away a peaceful interpretation of that faith. That's not all we're going to do, though. I think we can go further than that, and what I'm going to do as I move on is give you a positive justification as to why casting Islam as a religion of peace is a widely held and intuitive reading of the doctrines and practices of Islam. So I think, first of all, when we address the Quran in its totality, we see that it has an overwhelmingly peaceful character, okay? First of all, the very ideal of Quranic society is Dar al-Salam, literally the house of peace. Moreover, one of the fundamental pillars of Islam is almsgiving, is charity, is fellowship with your fellow man, attempting to do good unto others as you would like to have it done to yourself. Muhammad, in his very last sermon, said, "Hurt no one so that no one may hurt you." And whilst they may give to you examples of instances in which there are elements of warlike rhetoric or violent rhetoric within the Quran, in the overwhelming majority of cases, those such scriptural instances are followed by exhortations which suggest that taking the peaceful option is always the preferable one and is always the one which is more in line with God's wishes. But moreover, I think that we can cast Islam as being a peaceful religion based on the change that it seeks to inspire on an individual level. Because that's what Islam attempts to do. It attempts to inspire a positive and a peaceful change in all of its followers. First of all, it suggests that the choice to engage in Islam and to become a Muslim has to be a free one and has to be devoid of compulsion. Secondly, for those individuals who do enter into the Islamic faith, there is a massive impetus on engaging in good deeds with your fellow man. But moreover, what I'd like to say in terms of casting Islam as a religion of peace is that we can also consider peace in terms of inner peace today, ladies and gentlemen. In a confusing world of consumerism and uncertainty, the absolute clarity and certainty that Islam gives to its followers that there is something worth striving for, that it is worth acting in a morally just way, and that there is something beyond this temporal and this material realm is something that allows people a great sense of inner peace. And that is something invaluable and something that we should not take away based on the arguments of opposition. Now, finally, I'd like to tell you what it would mean for you to vote with the proposition in tonight's debate.
All right.
Because I told you at the start this debate doesn't occur in a vacuum. Now, even if we were to ignore the horrific events of yesterday, in a post-9/11 landscape, what we have witnessed is a decade-long surge of violence, aggression, and human rights abuses directed at Muslims, which have been justified by a sustained demonization campaign. When the Western media and when mainstream media is looking for a voice of Islam, they do not seek out the moderate voices, they do not seek out the reasoned voices, they seek out angry men with hooks, ladies and gentlemen. They seek out people who are setting fire to effigies. There has been a deliberate distortion in the actions of the media in a post-9/11 and post-7/7 world, which has been internalized by many people in society. That's why, in the aftermath of yesterday's attacks, Twitter went absolutely mental with people suggesting that we should kill all the Muslims. That's literally something that was retweeted thousands and thousands of times. But what I'd like to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that in the coming days, that's the sort of rhetoric that's going to be predominating in the media. That's the sort of rhetoric that's going to be directed at each and every one of you. And if you vote with the opposition tonight, you're buying into that rhetoric. You are telling people who follow the Islamic faith, you are telling Muslims what their religion can and cannot be, and that it must not be peaceful and must be violent. That is something which essentializes, and that is something that marginalizes. When you walk out that door tonight, you've got a choice between love and hate, between embrace and rejection, between peace and conflict. I hope you make the right choice.
With choice, you have got a choice between love or hate, between embrace and rejection, between peace and conflict. I hope you made the right choice. The choice is yours. You believe that Islam from your heart, you can get a peace from your life. I think the debate is very, very good because he voiced clear, and other people can understand what he mean that from topic, contents, and other. So it is enough for me. So thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So bye bye.